Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I thought I would go over my Netgalley account, do a sort of Netgalley bookshelf tour, randomly choose some ARCs that I really need to review because I went a little crazy when I was requesting my Netgalley ARCs originally. And so I have over 100 outstanding ARCs that I need to review. So I thought for May I could choose 5 books at random using a number generator. I track all of my books that I've been approved for in Netgalley on a spreadsheet I have and make sure to update that spreadsheet when I've read them, when I've posted reviews, where I've posted the review, the publication dates, all that info. I have not been good at sticking to getting those reviews in and books read on time, but I do have the data. So I thought I could use the spreadsheet and a random number generator to choose 5 books at random from my Netgalley TBR list and improve my ratio, which is horrible right now, obviously, because I have not been reviewing them with as much frequency as I should. So what is Netgalley? If you don't know, Netgalley is a website that you can use to request some free advanced reader copies. If you're in the booktube community, you probably already know about it, but it's for book reviewers, either on booktube, bookstagram, book blogs, that sort of thing. Also professionals, you know, if you're a librarian or a teacher or something like that. I've really been enjoying Netgalley. I got approved for way more titles than I ever would have thought I would have gotten approved for, just having started out. So I am very excited to make this video and improve my feedback ratio, which is very sadly lacking. So my feedback ratio right now is about 10% because, as I said, I have over 100 titles that I've been approved for. Actually, I'm looking at my stats now. I've been approved for 124 Netgalley ARCs with even more pending approval. Now, some of those have been pending approval for a long time, and I don't expect to get approved for those, but it is what it is. So I'm hoping that each month going forward for at least until the end of the year, I can read 5 books from Netgalley a month. We will see. Life gets hectic, picks up at different points, and I am not able to read as much, so we'll see. Also, this month I've agreed to participate in a book blog tour for one bonus book, so I will be choosing 5 books from my Netgalley approved list to read this month, and then 1 additional bonus book that I need to post about for my blog tour that I'm participating in May. So let's get into it. I've got Goodreads pulled up so I can give you the author's info, read you a description blurb of the 5 books I've chosen. So the first number that I randomly generated is 4. And so I should clarify how I have my spreadsheet list of ARCs laid out. So I've broken it down by month. So each month has all of the books that are being released that month. I was also approved for some titles that already came out in the past and don't have archive dates set yet, so I will not be counting those. I'm going to count the books as they are in my spreadsheet, which is sort of the order I got approved in, spread out by month, if that makes sense. So within a particular month, say I was approved for 10 books, the order that those books appear on the list is most likely the order that I was approved for them in. And so I added them to the bottom of the list, and so the list grew as I got approved for more. And so I'm going to start with the first book in the first slot for January 2021 and count from there. Once I run out of books in January, I'll start counting in February, etc. So of the books that I have been approved for that I have not reviewed yet and that are not old, like from before 2021, I've got 95 books, of which I'm going to choose 5 and start reading for May. So number 4 on my list is The Girl Under the Flag by Amit. So this book looks like it is number 1 in a series called World War II Girls. The description for this reads, Monique would do anything to live. When will her identity be found out? Running for her life from the Nazis, Monique, a 17-year-old Jewish girl, escaped through the streets of Paris, searching for a place to hide. In a dark basement in the city, Philip, a resilient man, offers her a deal, saving her life and changing her identity. In return, she needs to provide information about the Germans and become acquainted with them. Torn between her feelings for Philip and the fear from Ernest, a German officer who wants to get to know her, Monique steps deeper and deeper into the jaws of the Nazi monster. But on every day that passes, she knows that it is only a matter of time before she makes a mistake and is uncovered by the Germans. Through her own eyes, Monique tells of her efforts to survive in occupied Paris, torn between the cafes full of people and the poor citizens waiting in lines, holding food ration tickets. But above all, this is a story about a girl who has fought for her freedom during those dark days, not giving up when the German soldiers walked through Paris, marching the streets with their hobnailed boots. So this book interested me and I requested it because I am really fascinated with World War I and World War II as a subject. I studied both in college. I was a German major. My specialty was German history. So I am very intrigued by German history and culture. And as one historian put it, the Holocaust and World War II is the vanishing point of German history. In other words, it all comes back to that kind of no matter what topic you study. And so I'm very intrigued because I've read real survivor accounts that kind of mimic this, real women who survived the Holocaust, who had to disguise their identities. And so I'm very intrigued to see what this book has to offer, how it matches those sorts of real life stories, whether or not it does. I think the setting in Paris can be very unique, so I'm very excited to pick that one up. So the next number that I generated from my random number list is 57. Book 57 on my list is called The Making of Biblical Womanhood: How the Subjugation of Women Became the Gospel Truth by Beth Allison Barr. I chose this book because I'm very interested in how Christians, especially Christian fundamentalists, justify a lot of their beliefs through the Bible, harmful sexist beliefs, obviously homophobic beliefs, transphobic beliefs as well. And I'm really interested in this take. Reading the description of this book made me think that the author was very uniquely poised to tackle this subject, and I was just so intrigued what she had to say. So the description of this book reads, Biblical Womanhood: The belief that God designed women to be submissive wives, virtuous mothers, and joyful homemakers pervades North American Christianity. From choices about careers to roles in local churches to relationship dynamics, this belief shapes the everyday lives of evangelical women. Yet biblical womanhood isn't biblical, says Baylor University historian Beth Allison Barr. It arose from a series of clearly definable historical moments. This book moves the conversation about biblical womanhood from beyond Greek grammar and into the realm of church history, ancient, medieval, and modern, to show that this belief is not divinely ordained, but a product of human civilization that continues to creep into the church. Barr's historical insights provide context for how contemporary teachings about women's roles in the church and help move the conversation forward. Interweaving her story as a Baptist pastor's wife, Barr sheds light on the #Church2 movement and abuse scandals in Southern Baptist circles and the broader evangelical world, helping readers understand why biblical womanhood is more about human power structures than the message of Christ. So this book really appealed to me because I've been interested in examining Christian fundamentalism in the US for a bit of time now. And as a historian, as a pastor's wife, as someone who was raised and lives in the Southern Baptist environment, the author of this book really is uniquely poised to tell her story and give an insider's perspective on this. This is not the background I come from at all. I don't agree with the vast majority of evangelical Christianity's takes and the harmful messages that they often put out. And so I'm really intrigued at finding out what is behind that. I also studied anthropology in college, and so I'm really intrigued from the human perspective, like what's going on behind the scenes in that religious community. The 61st book on my list is 3 Martini Afternoons at the Ritz, The Rebellion of Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton. The description of this book reads, a vividly rendered and empathetic exploration of how 2 of the greatest poets of the 20th century, Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton, became bitter rivals and eventually friends. Introduced at a workshop in Boston University, led by the acclaimed and famous poet Robert Lowell, Sylvia Plath and Anne Sexton formed a friendship that would soon evolve into a fierce rivalry, colored by jealousy and respect in equal terms. In the years that followed, these 2 women would not only become iconic figures in literature, but also lead curiously parallel lives, haunted by mental illness, suicide attempts, self-doubt, and difficult personal relationships. With weekly martini meetings at the Ritz to discuss everything from sex to suicide, theirs was a relationship as complex and subversive as their poetry. Based on in-depth research and unprecedented archival access, 3 Martini Afternoons at the Ritz is a remarkable and unforgettable look at 2 legendary poets and how their work has turned them into lasting and beloved cultural figures. So I was really intrigued by this book because I don't know anything about Sylvia Plath or Anne Sexton, really. I know that they're very popular. I know that I had a roommate my freshman year of college who was obsessed with Sylvia Plath. I know some of the details about them, but I don't really know anything about their work. Like, I haven't read any of their work that I'm familiar with. I don't really know much about their personal lives, and I know that they're 2 very prolific female authors, and I'm really intrigued by history from a social perspective, from individual perspectives, individual stories. And so I love hearing historical details and historical stories about how these famous figures know each other, how they interact, what their motivations are. And this just seemed like the type of book that I would absolutely love. The next number on my list is 51. The 51st book on my list of ARCs is Little Bandage Days by Kira Wilder. The description of this book is an emotionally charged, tautly composed debut thriller about motherhood, madness, and the myth of the perfect life. A mother moves to Geneva with her husband and their 2 young children. In their beautiful new rented apartment, surrounded by their rented furniture and several Swiss instructions to maintain quiet, she finds herself totally isolated. Her husband's job means he is almost never present, and her entire world is caring for her children, making sure they are happy and fed and comfortable, and that they seem to be happy, well-fed, comfortable, as the family should be. Everything is perfect, but of course it's not. The isolation, sleeplessness, the demands of 2 people under 2 are getting to Erica. She has never been so alone, and once the children are asleep, there are just too many hours to fill until morning. Kira Wilder's Little Bandage Days is a beautifully written, painfully claustrophobic story about a woman's descent into madness. Unpredictable, frighteningly compelling, and brutally honest. It grapples with the harsh conditions of motherhood and this mother's own identity, and as the novel continues, we begin to wonder just what exactly Erica might be driven to do. So I thought this book was interesting because I don't really know a lot about thrillers. I've read a couple here and there, but thrillers are not really a genre that I'm drawn to overall, and so they're one that I'd like to expand my interest in. And I am not a mother, I do not have children, but I find stories about motherhood compelling. I think especially with a lot of conversation being paid lately to how hard it can be to be a mother, how much mothers can struggle, that really made me interested to read more of those narratives and to seek to understand more. And I know this is a fictional story, but to understand a little bit more of the experience of what it means to be a mother from a character's like bird's eye view is something that I've never really had. The next number on my list was 91. So this is the last random book I will be choosing from my ARCs list. Book 91 on my list is The Hunt for Mount Everest by Craig Storte. So this is a nonfiction book, and the description is: the height of Mount Everest was first measured in 1850, but the closest any Westerner got to Everest during the next 71 years until 1921 was 40 miles. The Hunt for Mount Everest tells the story of the 71-year quest to find the world's highest mountain. It's a tale of high drama, of larger-than-life characters George Everest, Francis Younghusband, George Mallory, Lord Curzon, Edward Whymper, and a few quiet heroes: Alexander Kellis, the 13th Dalai Lama, Charles Bell. A story that traverses the Alps, the Himalayas, Nepal and Tibet, the British Empire, especially British India and the Raj, the Anglo-Russian rivalry known as the Great Game, the disastrous First Afghan War, and the phenomenal survey of India. It is far bigger than simply the tallest mountain in the world. Encountering spies, war, political intrigue, and hundreds of mules, camels, bullocks, yaks, and 2 zebrals, Craig Storte uncovers the fascinating and still largely overlooked saga of all that led up to the moment in late June of 1921 when 2 English climbers, George Mallory and Guy Bullock, became the first Westerners, and almost certainly the first human beings, to set foot on Mount Everest and thereby claimed the last remaining major prize in the history of exploration. With 2021 bringing the 100th anniversary of that year, most Everest chronicles have dealt with the climbing history of the mountain, with all that happened after 1921. The Hunt for Mount Everest is the seldom told story of all that happened before. So this book really interested me because I also studied history when I was in college. I love history. I'm so passionate about it. Historical fiction is my favorite genre. This book is nonfiction. I do love a good nonfiction historical book as well. And this one just sounds so interesting between the different personalities involved, the political aspects, the exploration and competition and everything going on in the background. So I'm really, really intrigued to see where this book goes. The last book that I'm going to be reading as a Netgalley ARC for the month of May is called A Theater for Dreamers by Paulie Sampson. So this book was not chosen at random because I'm participating in a blog tour for this book. I believe my date is May 17th. I have not yet read this book, so that's one that I really have to get on soon. The description of this book says, "It's 1960, and the world teeters on the edge of cultural, political, sexual, and artistic revolution. On the Greek island of Hydra, a proto-commune of poets, painters, and musicians revel in dreams at the feet of their unofficial leaders. The writers Charmian Clift and George Johnston, troubled queen and king of Bohemia. At the center of this circle of misfit artists are the captivating and inscrutable Axel Jensen, his magnetic wife Marianne Iwan, and a young Canadian ingenue poet named Leonard Cohen. When 18-year-old Erica stumbles into their world, she's fresh off the boat from London, with nothing but a bundle of blank notebooks and a burning desire to leave home in the wake of her mother's death. Among these artists, she will find an unraveling utopia where everything is tested, the nature of art, relationships, and her own innocence. Intoxicating and immersive, A Theater for Dreamers is a spellbinding tour de force about the beauty between naivete and cruelty, chaos and utopia, artist and muse, and about the wars waged between men and women on the battlegrounds of genius. Roiling with the heat of a Grecian summer, A Theater for Dreamers is, according to The Guardian, a blissful piece of escapism and a surefire summer hit." So I was really interested in this book for a variety of reasons. One, I love Greece as a setting, and I don't know much about Greece in this time period. And so, while this is a fictional book, I'm interested to see. The other reason that I was really interested, and this is the main reason, is that, so I already mentioned that I study German history, and one of the things that I just find so fascinating as a time period in German history is the culture that sprang up in West Berlin and how many musicians were on the scene in West Berlin. And not even just musicians, but artists of all kind went to West Berlin back in like the 60s and 70s. And the culture that really sprang up there was incredible. And these included artists like David Bowie, Tilda Swinton, Debbie Harry. And so I got similar vibes from this book, that it was going to be about these artists really interacting with each other in this sort of liminal space and what that would be like. And I was really intrigued to see a fictionalized take on a very similar setting. So that is my Netgalley TBR for the month of May. Hopefully you like this video. Thanks for watching.